It's your weekly breakaway for fun conversations on pro cycling and so much more. Join us as we go beyond the slipstream. I'm Matt Harper, and together with my brother Justin, we'll do deep-ish dives on bike races, movies, bands, and all manner of shiny pop cultural objects. Oh, and did I mention bike races? We're kind of obsessed. Allez! Hello and welcome to Beyond the Slipstream. I'm Matt and this is my brother Justin, and today in our first segment we'll be breaking down all the action from the 11th edition of the Strade Bianchi Donne, as it's properly called, the Women's Strade Bianchi. We're staying on the white gravel roads of Tuscany for segment 2 as we analyze the men's version of the race. And in our third segment, we're going to take a close look at Team UAE Emirates, the juggernaut of the 2025 Pro Peloton, a veritable murderer's row of heavy hitters led by none other than the winner of everything in 2024, Tadej Pogacar. And as is our custom, we'll bow out of this week's slipstream with a ride in the Broom Wagon. Allez! The Women's Pro Peloton rolled out across the white gravel roads of Tuscany yesterday in the 11th edition of the Strade Bianchi Donne. As with the men's race, this race has become a much anticipated date on the women's calendar, and with good reason, as it usually serves up excitement and intrigue. Gravel sectors have certainly come into fashion in greater and greater degrees in recent years, but it's not just the crumbly bits that makes this race so cool. The finishing climb into Siena is the perfect spot for epic fights, as riders empty themselves up a gorgeous narrow road before a tiny dip into the Piazza del Campo at the finish. Last year saw then and current world champion Lada Capecchi best then Italian national champion Elisa Longoborghini in emphatic fashion as she rode clear of the home country favorite halfway up the climb. Justin, any big surprises for you in this year's edition?
Yeah. The fact that ELB was, not a factor. Cassie and Iwadoma not a factor. I was hoping to see a little more of the star power in the front of the race, but I still enjoyed the end. I mean, I thought Anna van der Breggen, really put up a great fight to the end, and just, I just don't think that she quite had the power that Demi had there, in the closing Ks. But I enjoyed it thoroughly. I really did.
Yeah, the lack of ELB. I mean, she was in the race and kind of hanging in for a while, but I believe she was sick yesterday. So that was a bit of a bummer. Definitely a bummer seeing Cassia go down. I know that she DNF'd the race. Have you heard anything about like her status? No, neither have I. So need to figure that out. But yeah, that being the case, there was still like a good number of hitters towards the end. I mean,
Puck stayed, in it up until that final group split up too. I mean, Puck Peterson did a great ride yesterday as well.
Yeah, and you had Pauline Ferrand-Prévot in there. You had our girl from EF, Noemi Ruig, in there. I think she may have top 10'd it. So there was certainly some folks in there keeping things interesting, but when those two, van der Breggen and Vollering, rode away, it was kind of all over but the crying. Like there was no way that anybody was getting them back. I mean, that gap just kept climbing and kept climbing.
It seemed like once they made that move, they just were so much stronger than everybody else.
And you gotta say, 2 is definitely better than 1. Because this race has often spat out one person off the front and turned into snooze fest, and it certainly wasn't that. I mean, this thing was exciting till about 3/4 of the way up the climb yesterday. So,
And that's how it was last year too, because I mean, you had ELB and Lotte Kopecky all the way into Siena before Kopecky finally broke away and won that. Won it at the end, and it's awesome that this race comes down to that little thing, and that you can get that little bit of drama right before the end.
yeah, I mean, I don't think any edition of this race could ever beat the one that we had 2 years ago when Vollering and Kopecky were, as teammates, were sprinting it out against each other. That was totally insane. Because of the difficulty of the climb, the steepness of the climb, I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to get one person going clear of the other person and riding solo across the finish line, which is exactly what happened yesterday. But, having it happen that way is certainly better than somebody just riding away from X number of Ks out in the front. So, yeah, so that made for a very exciting finish to the race, which, I absolutely loved. And if you want to get deeper into it, I mean, just the whole dynamics. I mean, the fact that, Anna van der Breggen is this great champion. She was retired for a couple of years. Not only was she retired, but she was Demi's coach. So she knows
what a weird change in dynamic.
Just crazy. And then if you go further into it, it's like, how much bad blood is there between these two? Because if I'm Demi Vollering, I'm still pissed off about what happened at Tour de France last year. I mean, their team, Van der Breggen included, I believe cost her the Tour de France. And while I'm not upset over that, because I was so thrilled to see Cassia win, and we got one of the greatest Alpe d'Huez's of all time last year. I mean, arguably the best single day of racing of anybody, men or women, of the entire year last year. However, didn't go Demi Vollering's way, and it was the team's fault. And Anna van der Breggen was right there in the car, and she could have gotten on that radio and said, whoa, slow down, wait up, we got the yellow jersey, time to take care of your team. And instead, I mean, you have to believe that she signed off on whoever it was, Blanca Voss or somebody that went for ended up sprinting for 4th place or something like that. I mean, it was, we've already litigated that, but one wonders if that rivalry is perhaps a bit stronger because of that whole incident.
I mean, it definitely leaves room for speculation. That is for sure. You wonder, with Anna being the DS, on the team, that would, again, the team. It seemed like the team tactics in that moment were not where they needed to be. That is for sure.
Absolutely not.
I thought it made things very interesting to watch the two of them go. I was glad that it came down to those two, out of who the group was. I mean, I guess I would have liked to see Puck Peterson there. It would have been cool for them to be going 3 up into Siena, but it just seemed to me like those two were hands above everybody else. And then, I'm not going to lie, when Demi made her move, I mean, she seemed to have so much more. I mean, she just left, Anna in the dust. I mean, when she made her move and went clear, I mean, it was over.
Like on the climb, you mean? Like at the end?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she was definitely like way stronger at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, but that leaves for some tantalizing speculation as to it's only her, literally like her second race back or something. I mean, I know Anna van der Breggen was racing last weekend because she set up her teammate for that win last week, but essentially like this is her first like big race of the year, and one could very easily speculate that she'll be coming into form. Like she'll she'll be getting stronger and stronger throughout the year. She's already won Strade Bianchi. This is no way that this is her big goal for the year. Her big goal's got to be the Tour de France, I would think, even though that's also going to be very interesting considering the fact that her teammate, Lotte Kopecky, is also very dialed in for the Tour de France. So I think it's going to be a shared leadership situation there, which could be problematic.
It could be. Can we talk about how just absolutely stunning Strade Bianchi is? Like,
it's so great.
I mean,
it's so beautiful.
It's just like from the gravel roads of Tuscany, all of the Italian countryside, and the end is just iconic. It is just one of the most beautiful ends to a bike race, even though it's completely tight. You don't get any like crazy aerials, but it feels like once they go through that gate, it's like the clock turns back in time and you're just transported to 14th century Italy, and it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just stunning. I mean, the countryside around there is so beautiful. There's a lot of like great like helicopter work. Something about the helicopter shots when they're able to kind of get beside the riders with the helicopter, so you're kind of looking at them from beside, and you see the rolling hills off in the background, and I mean, it just makes for some absolutely gorgeous racing. It's cool the way they had that circuit set up this year. I mean, there's definitely been a lot of argument about, does this race need that extra amount of, because basically I think what they did was they just added a circuit into the middle of the race course that wasn't there before. But that means that there's just like a ton of people out there on the course in that circuit area. So you got a lot of great shots also of like the riders, like, navigating through, thick crowds and stuff like that, which was super cool as well.
Well, it makes that end so cool. Like like the way that end kind of like, they come out of that turn and it like kind of dumps them down to the finish line. It's so awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I loved how you got that final gravel sector, the La Tolfe sector, and they still had the group together going into that section. I mean, it was on that sector that Damie and AVB were able to break away, but going into it, I mean, you still had like a good number of people in there.
There had been 10, maybe a dozen riders in that group.
Yeah, and I mean, you still had Pauline Ferrand-Prévot in there. You had Juliette Labousse, who I think the commentators were in agreement that was like the absolute MVP of that day. Like she was hanging in there.
I mean, she was hung in there way after she needed to. I think she get fourth. I'm pretty sure she got fourth place.
Yeah, I think so. A 1-4 for that team is pretty strong.
Yeah, for sure.
The what's her name? Danny, the one commentator, the female commentator. Yeah, Danny Rowe said it perfectly. Total goosebumps as you're watching Demi Vollering and Anna van der Breggen ride through that gate together. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It was quite awesome. So yeah, I have to say, like, this race, I mean, we got the winner that we were kind of expecting. She was definitely the pre-race favorite. But it kind of went down almost exactly the same way it went down last year, with the two strongest riders hitting the climb at the end, and one of them, shredding the other one halfway up the climb. But still, totally exciting. Like no disappointment whatsoever. And
I'll take that over somebody riding clear at 30K and, there not being any drama in the end.
Yeah, and somebody riding clear and no drama at the end is a good way to cap it off, because we're about to transition into our conversation about the men's race. So we will leave it there. Please stay with us, and we will be right back to discuss the men's version. Last year, Tadej Pogacar was over 3 minutes clear of the nearest chaser as he hit the final climb into Siena at the 2024 Strade Bianchi, the iconic Italian one-day race that many in the world of cycling consider the sixth monument, though that often turns into a pretty heated conversations as opinions vary wildly. But there's no debate that this is an exciting race and much beloved, and the list of winners since its inception 18 years ago in 2007 is a who's who of the greats of the men's pro peloton over the past 2 decades. Justin, I'm sure you'll agree that yesterday's race was a bit more exciting than last year's, but how would you rate it overall?
I don't think it was as good as the women's, but there was a heck of a lot more drama in it. There was way more drama in it than I expected, to be honest with you. I thought that Tom Pidcock, acquitted himself very well yesterday. I think that he shows that he is definitely one to watch this year. You know what I mean? Because he hung in there with Pogacar way into it, and it really wasn't until it really started to suit Tade before he finally ended up getting dropped. The tail of the tape does not really tell the story as well as or I should say that I think he had a minute on Pidcock by the end, or a minute and like a quarter. And I think it was a little bit closer than that. I mean, I think once Pogacar decided to go, I mean, he just shows that he just has more in the tank than anybody. But I thought that Tom did a really, really good job of hanging in there as far as he could. And I think he made it interesting, a lot more interesting than it could have been.
Absolutely. I mean, he is, I don't want to say he's on the come up. I mean, he's been one of the greats here for the past couple of years, but it's just he has just got a whole new outlook on life, it seems, this year with that new team, having everybody completely dedicated to him, and not having to feel like he's negotiating for his opportunities with his team. He's rising to the occasion, as we've said multiple times this year. Like that the team boss must be thrilled with what's happening, because that man is earning his very heady paycheck. I'm sure very heady paycheck. Yeah. So I guess we gotta talk about the main event in this race, which was the insane crash of Tadej Pogacar whilst riding at the front of the race. So they're kind of coming into a left-hand turn. There must have been some debris or dirt or dust on the road or something like that. His bike just kind of slipped out from under him. He goes down hard on his left shoulder. They played the replay so many times that I was able to really kind of drill down and look at it. At first I thought he had hit his head really, really hard, but the more I looked at it, I don't think he really hit his head at all. Actually, I think he came down on his shoulder. His helmet may have just barely touched the ground, but the impact was really his shoulder. But then he kind of slides, and then when he hits the side of the road, he completely does a cartwheel basically. I mean, you saw both of his legs
he got thrown pretty probably 10 feet off the road. I mean, it was
at least
he was clipping along really, really hard. The front came out from under him, and he went down hard on that left shoulder. At that point, it was just him, Pidcock, and Connor Swift, and Pidcock obviously got around it just fine. Swift had to adjust and kind of went off the road, but in the original shot, you kind of only saw the end of it, and then they had to go back and show you the replay. And
right.
I remember looking at the first thing and going how did he get in the grass? He's way deep in the grass. And
not just the grass.
They reversed it. It was you could see him literally slide off the road, hit the grass, and then get kind of launched over into the tall grass. And he's 10 feet off the road when he finally stands up.
Yeah, he's charmed. That live shot when you were watching it, the original shot, you're right. They were focused on somebody on a different group, And they come back, and the first thing you see is Pogačar like getting up out of like a thorn bush. I mean, it wasn't just the grass; it was like a straight up like nasty old thorn bush to add insult to injury. Although when you think about it, man, that guy is just charmed. Like 9 times out of 10, a crash like that, you're not finishing that race. Like you're done. And that man was like back on his bike in an instant. There was a great shot. So he flies off the road. Swift doesn't crash, but like
definitely goes off the road.
Yeah, he goes off the road and ends up needing a bike change somehow. I'm not exactly sure why. He was sort of the agreed upon big loser of that crash, because he probably would have hung in there with those guys for considerable amount of time more. But Pogačar gets back on his bike and is, pumping with adrenaline and just flies up to meet up with Pidcock, and in doing so just drops Swift like almost instantaneously. Just another crazy statement about Tadej Pogačar. I mean, the guy has this nasty crash, and 30 seconds later he's dropping somebody. Like, it's crazy.
His condition is just completely ridiculous.
But so there was a great shot though where Pidcock ends up out in front by himself, and there was this one shot where you're seeing him from, it's like a shot of Pidcock working his way up that hill. The camera is like looking back at him from in front of him, and way in the background you can see Pogačar like getting out of the bushes and like kind of making a little jog back on. Like he had to sort of like jump up, and you see like Pogačar jump up with Pidcock like up in front, like in the foreground of the picture, like looking back to see what was going on. I mean, totally wild crash. And then you can say that Pidcock was a classy move for him to hang out and wait up for Pog. But if you really analyze it, and I think Pidcock said as much in his post-race interview, like it was the best thing to do anyways for his race. Like to he didn't want to be riding by himself. They still had a ways to go in that race.
There was a lot of distance left. That was like
it was like 48 Ks left or something.
Like 40, 50 K.
So and he realized, like, I'm sure he knew, like, this guy's going to catch me. Like, pretty shortly after Pogačar was like back on his bike, and Pidcock's getting news on the radio that like, oh, he's back up, he's closing the gap real quick here. Pidcock knew, there's no point in me absolutely killing myself, for 10 or 15 Ks here to somehow try to stay in front of him. He's going to catch me. Best to just wait up. We'll ride together. He's going to want to nurse himself a little bit here anyways, and so it was a smart move, but it's still classy to wait up for the world champion like that. Also, like Pidcock's bike handling skills on full display once again, because he was right behind Pogačar, but he was headed deeper into the apex of the curve than Pogačar was. And, had he been in front, he wouldn't have crashed. Like, no chance. Like, that guy is a complete badass on the descents. And no surprise that Pogačar goes down. Pidcock threads his way through. No problem. But beast.
It was, I tell you, it's you don't really see it very often from Pogačar, like those moments of vulnerability. And it was just wild. It was wild to see him go down. And I will say that they provided for a lot of drama, because you had to wonder, how was he going to feel getting, because there was so much race left when it happened. You had to wonder if he would, if it would end up catching up with him in the end. And obviously it didn't, because, he ended up, I mean, he dropped Pidcock like, it was like Pidcock never stood a chance. It's crazy, battered and bloodied, and he is still just, the most dominant rider that I've ever seen. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's the most dominant rider anyone's ever seen, arguably. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's unusual to see Pogačar in a moment of vulnerability. So that certainly made for a much more exciting race than last year when he rode away with 50 Ks to go or whatever it was. I mean, that's just like lame. But I mean, he was by himself, with 10Ks to go. So, it's kind of inevitable that it was headed that way, but still, I mean, seeing his shredded kit and like, at first I thought his pant leg was like gone, like his left pant leg. I thought it looked like it was just like had been like just gone somehow, but it turns out it was just like when he was sliding along the road, like the road surface just like rolled the pant leg up onto his leg, because 5Ks later, when they were kind of calmed down and just riding together, he looked down and saw it and was just kind of like pushed it back down again.
I will say, you started to kind of touch on it, and I did kind of clock it as I was watching. When he's coming up the climb at the end, and getting getting ready to finish the race, when he's like high-fiving people in the crowd, and his kid's shredded, and like, it's like, I get it, man. It's like, it's hard to watch all the, it's hard to watch him win everything that he touches, but man, he does put on a show, dude. Like, he is definitely, has the charisma of a great winner, and, it never seems to be like, he just isn't cocky about it. And, if you got to watch somebody win over and over again, man, he's fun to watch win. He just is.
Absolutely. And especially on that race course, man, like what we were talking about in our women's segment, just absolutely beautiful. Did you catch the little like tourism package that they put together, like of like the shots of Siena, where they'd put the race like in a tiny little window down in the corner and show a bunch of like beautiful shots of Siena?
Yeah.
God, just stunning, man. That looks like just like the most gorgeous town. I mean, it's so pretty. And I gotta say, like, great camera work, not just in terms of like the helicopter work, but like that crash of Pogačar, like we got a fantastic view from behind of that crash. We got a great view from in front of that crash. We got a great view from the helicopter of the crash. Like, we were not hurting for angles on that crash.
It is a stark difference in these big races with what the quality of the broadcast is versus these smaller races, and where we've been, lamenting in multiple weeks about, bad camera work. I believe that just last week we were talking about, the way that one of those races finished, the way that you couldn't even see the finish line, the way that they did the camera work. So it's wonderful to get all of these different angles and all of these really great shots. I mean, it seems like they have that end dialed in, because like they know exactly where those cameras need to be to give you the best shots. Because especially that shot when they're like in the town, it's tight buildings on either side, and they're going up that climb, and like you get that back shot. Oh man, so great.
Yeah, so great. Couldn't agree more. Awesome race. He's an awesome rider. They're both awesome riders. And he is on a incredible team this year, which we will be talking about in much more depth in our third segment. So stay tuned.
Don't miss the Team Bus, our weekly companion podcast to the main Beyond the Slipstream show. Our domestique, if you will, dropping every Wednesday in your usual podcast feed.
One could make a convincing argument that today Pogačar is an entire team within himself, especially considering his personal 2024 palmarès, which contain more wins than many entire teams. It then becomes an embarrassment of riches when you consider the team assembled around him for 2025. Juan Ayuso, winner of last week's Fondrome Classic and the Trofeo La Gueglia. Jonathan Narvaez, a recent signing from Ineos, who won on Wollonga Hill at the Santos Tour Down Under in January en route to an overall GC win. Jan Christian, who before injuring himself last week at the aforementioned Fondrome, had notched wins at the Trofeo Calvia and Stage 2 of the Volta Algarve. Pavel Sivakov, another pickup from Ineos, who took home the overall GC win at the Vuelta Andalucía, and Adam Yates, another recent signing who grabbed the overall GC win at the Tour of Oman earlier this year. Add in Pog's GC win at the UAE Tour, and that makes 4 GC wins this year for the team before the end of February. And I haven't even mentioned the likes of Mark Soler, Jay Vine, Tim Wellens, Florian Vermeer, Antonio Morgado, Brandon McNulty, Isaac Del Toro, Rafael Micah. Justin, this team is an absolute monster. Is there anything they can't win this year?
Literally no. You also, excuse me, there's yet another win that they have this year with Antonio Morgado at the Gran Premio Castellón at the Ruta del Ceramica. This team is a juggernaut, to say the least. They won. I mean, this is just, listen to this. They won 81 races, all right, placing them, by the way, third overall, all right. There were, teams with more victories. They finished on a podium 183 times last year.
It's crazy.
All right. I mean, the team is absolutely stacked. 15 victories, and we're weeks into the racing season. You know what I mean? I mean, for most people, they consider it, opening weekend last weekend, and they have 15 victories, the second week into the season. So it's very interesting to see, what they've done, because this team's only existed since 2017. They have built just an absolute juggernaut of a team, the likes of, Sky. I mean, you have to say that this is, that type of situation, but maybe even more because they've got so much star power. I mean, there's just, these guys can win anywhere at any time. They're in contention at every race. So
yeah. I mean, I would say it's not really even a comparison. I mean, Team Sky was like a Grand Tour machine for sure. But I mean, this team has got depth in every possible discipline. They've got incredible time trialists. They've got punchers. They've got classics guys. They got climbers. I mean, there's nothing they can't do. Now, I have to address like the elephant in the room. I mean, there's a very big reason why this team is the way it is, and that is oil money. I mean, it's owned by this this corporation in the UAE that's basically like backed by the government. I mean, they've just got more money by orders of magnitude than any other team, so they can go out and buy whatever riders they want. I mean, their payroll is, I mean, just their payroll alone is probably double, triple the entire team budgets for other teams. So, they got an unfair advantage, and that kind of sucks, but that's like the nature of the sport in a way. I mean, there's not a whole lot that can be done about it, really.
Do you find it interesting though that they can assemble this kind of group of riders? I mean, obviously, if you're like, hey, I want to team with Pogacar, if you're a domestique type, like, yeah, of course you want to be there. You want to be involved in those wins. But I mean, for guys like, Juan Ayuso and Adam Yates, like, these are Brandon McNulty. These are riders that could be stars on other teams, but yet here they are, taking the, proverbial backseat role to, the world superstar, but yet they're still on the team. Those are good caliber riders, and they're still able to keep them, and it's like, and don't tell me that it's just the money, because I'm sure that those guys could go out and get contracts somewhere else. So,
well, I would say, no, it's not just the money. I mean, it's the team culture as well. I mean, yes, it starts with the money. I guarantee you that everybody on that team is very happy with the money that they're making. And just like for anybody in life, if you're making an amount of money that makes you happy and you're comfortable with, like, that does so much for your mental health. I mean, money can't buy happiness, quote unquote, but it sure helps. So when you start there, and then you consider the fact that whilst, yeah, they're sort of quote unquote second fiddle to Tadej Pogacar, Pogacar can't race every race. You know, he's not going to be at every race. And so if I'm a Juan Ayuso, I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, maybe I'm working as a domestique for Pogacar in 1 or 2 races this year, but I'm also going to be the team leader at a lot of races. And I'm going to be the team leader on a team that is very well funded, that's on the best setup. Well, I'm going to have a great TT setup. I'm going to have, comfortable hotel rooms and great support. And, they probably, some of the top guys on that team, they probably have dedicated nutritionists for them and stuff like that. So, I don't think there's any issue. I mean, I think really the issue for them would be like, you take Yates and Ayuso, for example. I would see more of an issue cropping up with them saying, well, wait a second, like, I want to be the leader at such and such thing that Pog is not going to. Why does he get it? You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure as it stands right now, both Yates and Ayuso are going to the Giro, and they're doing like dual leadership for the Giro. And as we've seen in the past, like that can lead to difficulty for teams when you go into things with dual leadership and you have that sort of like lack of singular focus. I mean, it can work out to have 2 strong guys there, because if one of them is not doing so well, the other one can come in. By the end of the Giro, I'm sure the focus is going to be on one or the other of those guys. But yeah, I'd say being on a team like that would be pretty desirable for any rider.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget, you have those 2 guys, but you also have João Almeida, you have Brandon McNulty, you have Isaac Del Toro. These are all riders that are capable of winning big races at any given time. And not to mention the cavalcade of other quality riders that they have. They've got, Wellens and Vine, Vermeersch, Soler, Sivakov, Paulin.
Wellens got the podium in Strade Bianchi yesterday. I mean, they had 2 guys on the freaking podium in that race. Yeah. So who would you rank as like 2 through 5 on that team?
Ooh. 2 through 5.
I mean, I would say absolutely, like Ayuso and Yates have got to be in the conversation for 2 through 5.
Yes, agreed.
I think you got to have Almeida up there as well.
Yeah, for sure. Del Toro, I would put up there. And I would, well, it's going to be tough between McNulty and Del Toro.
Yeah, I would say McNulty, actually.
I mean, you also have Jay Vine. Jay Vine is a good rider. That's tough, man. And if you're just talking about like who you would like, those are your GC aspiration guys. But I mean, I don't know. I would probably put Marc Soler more important, than a couple of those guys, at least, to what, the team goals are.
Yeah. I mean, I would have, if we're talking like top 10, I'd have Narvaez in there. I would have Morgado in there. Soler for sure. Sivakov. I mean, good Lord, this team is it's outrageous.
Yeah. It's just like every time you look back through the list of names on the team, you're just like, holy moly.
I mean, is there any possibility that they're not first in wins this year? Because I was actually kind of shocked when I saw that they were only in 3rd for total number of wins last year. I found that kind of surprising, because a lot of these pieces were already in this puzzle last year. I mean, they did have some big pickups, obviously, Narvaez, Yates, etc. But I was a little surprised that they weren't first. Who was first? Do you remember? Do you recall who had which
I
teams?
don't remember. I could look it up. I mean, the fact of the matter is you know, when you have the guy that wins all of the big races, mopping up the smaller races almost seems unfair, and but it's hard to argue with how they're doing it, because I don't feel like at any point you look at any of those riders and be like, I don't really like that guy. Like, even with Pogacar, like you you can get tired of seeing him on the podium, but like I don't get tired of watching him race. I think he races in a way that makes it fun and interesting all the time, and the fact that you have this team that is always competitive, but yet somehow you also don't dislike them, because you would typically think like, oh man, here's these guys again, they're here's the giant team, and you'd get a little sick of it, but the guys that are winning that aren't Pogacar, you root for them. They're fun they're good riders. They're fun guys to watch. They all seem to be, fairly nice. Nobody, you know what I mean? It's just a very weird dynamic with this team that it's hard not to like them.
For sure. I mean, Marc Soler notwithstanding, I think he can be a little bit polarizing for people. I love watching that guy. Like he's a wild man. Yeah, a very likable team. And you make a good point. It's crazy for a team to be like, well, we don't really need to worry about the Tour de France. Like we already know we're going to podium the Tour de France and probably win it. So we can focus on, we can put even more focus on these second tier races and mop them up, as you say, because we're good. We're good on these grand tours. I mean, it's wild. I think the fun with this team this year is going to be seeing how they divide these teams up, seeing who goes where, and who gets placed into these domestique roles. These riders that are more than capable on any other team of being a leader in and of themselves, where they're going to be put in terms of support roles, like especially for the Tour de France. I mean, that's just going to be with a team like this. Like, you have to wonder, is that going to be enough to make the difference in the Tour de France? With a healthy Jonas going up against a healthy Tadej, like, will the team make the difference? Because there's absolutely no question about it. UAE is a far stronger team than Visma Lease Bike this year. They're going to have a stronger squad at the Tour de France. Will that be the difference maker with an even playing field between Jonas and Tadej?
I mean, look, it's not like, Visma's team is going to be, slouches in comparison to Pogacar. You're going to have Jonas and Jorgensen. And to me, Jorgensen's a rider on the come up. All right. That is a quality rider. You put him, Sepp Kuss, and Jonas together. I'm sorry, those three riders are as good as any three riders that are on UAE. All right. And, when you go back to 22, when Jonas beat Tadej the first time, it took two riders to really take him down. All right. And, you have that dynamic again where, Visma obviously lost Primoz, over to Red Bull, but now you have a replacement. And in my opinion, I think Jorgensen has more of an upswing right now versus Primoz. I know you're a Primoz guy, but if you were like, hey, which one of these two riders do you want to put in this role with Jonas and Sepp? I'm going to pick Matteo at that point because I think he's got more upswing, and I think that he is very, very hungry to do well. And I think they have a good shot. Pogacar is something else, man. He's a wild card in that sense that you don't know if or what's going to happen with him because he could just blow everybody away. But I think of anybody in the pro peloton, or if any group of riders can beat him, it's Visma. I think Visma can do it. I think they have the riders that can do it.
Well, let's hope, because it would be nice if it really came down to a mono thing. If the teams for each rider sort of cancel each other out, that would be a great thing. I still think that. I mean, again, though, I don't know who's gonna be at the tour with Pogacar. Because your Ayusos and your Almeidas are going to be looking for their own leadership roles. Certainly, like I said, Ayuso and Yates are going to the Giro, so one would imagine that one or both of them might not be part of the Tour de France squad. How they would do as a Grand Tour domestique for Tadej Pogacar, I think they would both be pretty damn good as domestiques. If they're not there, you're still going to have some really, really strong guys there in domestique roles. So in my opinion, I still give the advantage to UAE a little bit in terms of the entire team. But, I hope I'm wrong, because that will be a much more exciting Tour de France.
This is your projected Tour de France team for UAE. Obviously, Pogacar, Almeida, Ayuso, Pollitt, Sivakov, Soler, Wellens, and Yates.
Yeah, that's a hell of a team. Well, we will see. Anything else on Team UAE before we wrap it up?
No, but we will certainly be watching them win some stuff this year for sure.
That is a given. All right, we're going to leave it there, and please stick around. We're going to be right back for a ride in the team bus. No, we're going to be right back for a ride in the Broom Wagon. Stay with us. All right, we are back, and it's time for another ride in the Broom Wagon. Justin, what you talking about this week?
So one of my absolute favorite shows is coming back tonight. The Righteous Gemstones on HBO or Max. It's an HBO show, but obviously if you're streaming only, it's on Max. Do you watch this? Have you ever watched this show?
No.
Highly recommend it. It's Danny McBride kind of led cast, but it includes Danny McBride, Adam Devine, Edie Patterson, and John Goodman, and they are a family of televangelists, and they are completely over the top. And their uncle is Walton Goggins. And I mean, the cast is amazing. The supporting cast is tremendous, but this show is just wildly funny. It is a great skewer of the fundamentalist Christian, TV, religion thing, and it is just hysterical. I can't recommend it enough. I mean, it's so good. I watch it with my wife. They're starting season 3, and I'm telling you, it is worth every minute of a watch because it is so funny. Edie Patterson just steals the show among these comedy juggernauts, and it's so good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that show. I love that Adam Devine guy. That guy is freaking hysterical.
Oh, he's so funny. He's the little brother in it. And God, I'm telling you, man, the show is it's so damn good. So
Yeah, that's kind of been on my long list for a while. Maybe I'll dip my toe into that pool.
I'd love you to, because then we could talk about it on the podcast, because it would be well worth it, and then I would definitely go back and rewatch it. What do you got?
So for my Broom Wagon this week, I'm going to make an endorsement that I have no business making whatsoever, because it's for a product that I do not use and will never use. However, this has been a game changer for my wife. So today I am endorsing for both of our female listeners out there. I don't know how many female listeners we have, probably zero at this point. I'm going to endorse switching from tampons or pads to a period cup. If you don't know what this is, it's a little like kind of rubber / plastic kind of cup shaped thing that a woman inserts inside of herself that sort of collects the material of her period, and you can take it out. I don't know the exact mechanics. I don't know that I want to know the mechanics of it. What I do know is that for many thousands, possibly millions of women around the world, these things have been an absolute game changer. For one thing, they kind of manage the mess a little bit better that you're dealing with. But the big thing is the cost savings, because while they're not inexpensive, if you look at it over the course of a year or 2 years, they're wildly inexpensive. So my wife got one. The brand that she got is called Flex. She picked it up at Target. I want to say it cost her like around $40 for this thing, which is crazy. It's a single piece of plastic that probably costs about 12 cents to make. It cost her $40, but it'll last 2 years. And believe me, you're going to spend a hell of a lot more money on tampons ads in 2 years than $40. So a big endorsement there
these days.
Absolutely. So a big endorsement for period cups for women. And while I'm at it, I'm going to also endorse another product that I will never use. That's called a pee funnel. So ladies out there, if you've never heard of a pee funnel, it is exactly what you're picturing in your mind right now. It's a funnel that women can use to go pee while standing up, which in a way, maybe there's some crossover this for female cyclists, because, we're always seeing the men pulling off to the side of the road and, relieving themselves or whatever. And there's certainly no reason why a woman couldn't use, a proper pee funnel that was sort of collapsible or, in some way, suited to carry with you on a bike ride or whatever. And you just kind of like put it down there, and then you can just like stand up and let her go. And the funnel is going to direct it into one place. And I know from experience from some women that I've known in the past that have used these that like absolutely swear by them. So there are products out there that can make life easier for the ladies. And I love happy ladies. So a big rousing endorsement for period cups and pee funnels. I know you didn't see me going there, but I went there and I'm happy to do it. So that is going to do it for this week. Please join us next week for an all road racing edition of the show. We'll have analysis of stage racing in France and Italy with reviews of Paris-Nice and Tirreno Adriatico, which start today and tomorrow, respectively, as well as a full review of the Grand Women's One-Day Italian Classic, the Trofeo Alfredo Binda. Until then, for my brother Justin, I'm Matt Harper. Thanks for listening. We hope you'll join us again soon on another ride beyond the slipstream. Ale!
Beyond the Slipstream is a production of Harperama. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe, smash that button, leave a 5-star review, and most importantly, tell all your friends about us. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Ale!